We do not yet have Mark back. Thanks for coming back in, Tim.
Well, in the manner of speaking. I mean, he's in the city.
He's in the city, so we'll keep everybody as Mark's life turns. The soap opera of Mark's life. The woman that he went to France to see is now in Los Angeles. So,
yeah.
Mark, they're doing that thing. They're trying to make this global thing work.
You know, as many movies that Mark has seen about this very subject, you think he already would have seen this movie. Yeah. But hey, what the hell? Watch it. Go for it.
So anyway, we will have Tim once again for a couple of weeks, and then we'll have Mark's summation of his adventures. In the meantime, we're going to have a great show today. We've got an interview with a longtime friend of the podcast and longtime personal friend of all of ours, Mark Sanderson. Another Mark.
We should get to know people with other names.
Mark Sanderson, who has been on the show as a guest before, has written a dozen or so movies, including some great classic Christmas movies for Lifetime. Mark has just put a book out, a screenwriting book, which I think is terrific. And we're going to have an interview with Mark later in the show. And meanwhile, we're going to burn through some of these really fabulous. It's actually a really good week and some interesting stuff. I'm going to give Tim a moment to breathe, and I'm going to talk about some classical stuff so that it's not on deck for when Mark comes back, because he always hates it when we do it. So the people at Naxos are really, really good to us, and they always, Naxos is, of course, for those who need a little primer on it, Naxos is a kind of a distribution clearing center for a lot of different really, really great classical music labels. It's the best place to go for opera, ballet, classical concert, everything else. Great documentaries about classical figures. So there's always really interesting stuff there if you are snooty like I am and you love all this stuff. Le Mozart Noir is a DVD and CD combination. This is the life and music of Joseph Boulogne, Chevalier de Saint-Georges. This is really, really quite an interesting. This film won a number of awards, as I understand it. And it's essentially looking at this figure, Joseph Boulogne, who was a black musician in the 18th century, and has kind of fallen alongside a lot of the classical music history that we know, but really, really an amazing figure. So Le Mozart Noir means the Black Mozart, and really just an extraordinary figure, an amazing life. Frankly, one that should be made into a big narrative feature film. But anyway, this is really just a fantastic look at this amazing figure. Includes some on the CD some of his very best work, and it's really amazing. So Joseph Boulogne, Chevalier de Saint-Georges, really an amazing story. Definitely check it out. Le Mozart Noir. The only issue is I wish there were a Blu-ray of it, because it's a really good combo. We also have Francesca da Rimini, which is a ballet, kind of a dramatical ballet that is performed in 2 acts, and that is from the Festival Ballet d'Itria. Don't know what it is, don't understand it, but it's actually interesting. It's a little more modern than my taste normally would prefer, but it's good. That's the world premiere recording. We have a couple of Blu-ray audios, too. We don't get these very often, but Jan Gunnar Hoff, Stories is the name of this is a Blu-ray audio and hybrid SACD, Super Audio CD, which we don't get a lot of. And then there's Jens Harald Bratteli. The album is Vers la Lumière. This is all really good modern classical stuff. Again, maybe a little bit too modern for some of my tastes. A little bit veers into the electronic as well, but for people who like that kind of thing, very interesting. On DVD only from the C major line is Opern Gala. This is a big kind of opera highlight potpourri performance. A little bit of Beethoven, a little bit of Mozart, a lot of some other guys like Rossini and Offenbach, and it's a nice little overall opera primer if somebody wants something that's just not an opera per se, but just a concert with some kind of opera highlights. That's Operngala. Wagner, das Lebensverbot. I'm half German, and I'm sure I'm
Wagner.
I'm being disowned by all of my forebears for pronouncing that so badly. This is from the Teatro Real in Spain. This is the world premiere on DVD and Blu-ray. What I have in my hands is Blu-ray, released by Opus Arte. This is not a Wagner that I'm particularly familiar with.
I don't know it.
I don't either. I know the Ring and
the cycle.
The cycle. I know, and I've seen Tristan and Isolde.
Tristan and Isolde. Yes.
Years ago, there was a big Tristan and Isolde performance. Gosh, this must have been like 15 years ago or something. And my wife took me to see it. That was my birthday present, and we spent 6 hours at the Dorothy Chandler Pavilion.
6 hours at the Dorothy Chandler, seeing that perform, probably still better than the James Franco Kevin Reynolds film. Sorry, I had to take it there.
Yeah, it's all right. It's true. Anyway, this is Das Lebensverbot. This is not one that I'm terribly familiar with. It's based on Measure for Measure, the Shakespearean play, which I'm also not that familiar with, to be honest. And it's fine. It's an interesting performance. The costuming and the design is a little bit aggressive and strange, but anyway. The Royal Opera House did a fantastic production of Frankenstein. And this is amazing. This is the world premiere on Blu-ray. This is a Royal Ballet performance. And I didn't even know this existed. This is really, really cool. I wish they could do a Frankenstein movie that is as cool as this ballet.
Oh, interesting.
I really do. I mean, the art direction, the conceptualization of the monster, it's fantastic. It's really good.
I don't know, in the mode of maybe... Julie Tremor, maybe, or something different. That kind of thing.
It has kind of that vibe. Yeah,
I mean, she did that amazing thing.
It's very aggressively stylized and
Titus
really,
and
really, yes, very much so, like Titus. Yeah, it's got that kind of vibe. Lincoln Center Movies, Ballet Hispanico. We've covered a couple of these before, and this is always really, really good stuff. That's also on Blu-ray. Carmen.maquia and Club Havana. Franz Schubert's Winterreise. This includes there's a lot of really interesting stuff on this. This is a Blu-ray, and this has a whole bunch of additional kind of supporting extra material on it, documentary material. This was recorded at the Festival of Aix-en-Provence in France in 2014. The bonus documentary, which is called A Trio for Schubert, that's the one that I think is really almost makes this. I can't say I'm a huge fan of Winterreise, but the documentary is really, really great. The documentary is fascinating, gives you a lot of interesting background on Schubert, and it's pretty great. And then we have a whole series here. Actually, I'll do the series last. And then we also have Schoenberg, Gurre-Lieder. German words are going to kill me. This is why I never learned. This is why I learned French. My mother tried to teach me German. It just, my brain didn't absorb it. Neither did my mouth. Anyway, Gurre-Lieder. This is also a world premiere staging of what is considered Schoenberg's masterpiece by many people. I don't know. I don't know Schoenberg well enough, but it was certainly very entertaining and great music.
Talk about the modernist era.
Yeah,
that's Schoenberg.
Yeah,
you went to UCLA for God's sakes.
I know Schoenberg Hall.
Yeah,
I know. It should be in my blood. I
played the Steinway in that hall once. It was exquisite.
You probably played the same Steinway that my Professor Winter, who taught the Beethoven class.
To move his piano.
Yeah, he would get up in that hall. That was the only class I took in Schoenberg Hall. He'd get up there, amazing, and he'd just say, "Now this next part," he would play any piece of any Beethoven, just a drop of a hat, and he'd walk over to the piano and just bang it out. And I remember, I love Beethoven. I thought, I'm going to ace this Beethoven class, and then you get a final, which this is your final. He will go up at the piano and he'll bang out like 4 bars of something, and he will say, "Now, You have 15 minutes to write down what piece of music that is from, what part of the music it's from, what it means, and what it represented in Beethoven's life. And I kid you not, I sat there and I took it with a friend of mine that I used to work at the theater with. She's a musician. She had a band, right? She thinks music. She and I look at each other and we're like, well, okay. And we both got a C in the class. So I feel pretty good that I got a C with somebody who's a professional musician. But at the same time, that was a damn hard class. That was really hard. Gosh, that was a crazy class. Anyway, that's my Schoenberg Hall story. But anyway, so Schoenberg, somebody I should know more about, but I don't. This is performed by the Netherlands Philharmonic Orchestra and the chorus of the Dutch National Opera. For a little country, they have some amazing musicians and a fantastically tight bunch of talent. But this is kind of a late romantic thing, and it's an interesting production. It's feels very cinematic, but it is, like Tim said, it's very, very modernist. And then lastly, we've got a collection of 4 from this ongoing Elegance, the Art of series. And these are all DVDs. This is all from Art House Music, from basically dance productions, mostly ballet, but a lot of really great stuff here. This is the Dance Theater of Harlem doing Fall River Legend, Troy Game, The Beloved John Henry. Bits and pieces of all of these really, really great. I'm not familiar with John Henry as a ballet, but I want to be more familiar with it. What a great idea for ballet, John Henry, right?
Yeah, so it's like a medley of
it's like a medley
from different performances, or they did
different dance groups and medleys of different performances.
I got you.
So and this is the Nutcracker and the Mouse King. Performed by the Dutch National Ballet. Very, very interesting. Kind of a new take on the Nutcracker, to be honest. I'm a little bit lukewarm on it. And then Maya Plisetskaya, a tribute in 5 ballets. This is a tribute to Maya Plisetskaya. Again, somebody I'm not hugely familiar with, but an international legend apparently. There's a Carmen suite, Romantic Encounter, Grand Adage à la Rose Malade, and Ave Maya. And then lastly, a terrific kind of interpretation of Swan Lake called A Swan Lake. And this is by Alexander Ekman. And this is done by the Norwegian National Ballet and the Norwegian National Opera Orchestra. Again, a small country with some amazing talent. So that's all very beautiful. And those are all on DVD. So thanks again to the people at Naxos for sending us some really, really great DVDs and Blu-rays.
All of that was just fantastic.
Yeah.
I want all of those.
Yeah, it's good. It's not stuff you want to necessarily, at least if you are in my shoes. It's not something you sit down and you watch just beginning to end, but it's nice to have kind of running in the background.
Oh yeah.
When I'm doing other work, throw that on, dude. Let it kind of fill the house.
I am. I have 15 screens.
Ambience.
It's an ambient sort of thing, even if the sound is down.
Yeah. All right, let's dive into some new stuff.
The first one's Hidden Figures. There,
yeah, we got a 4K of Hidden Figures.
All kinds of wonderful things to say about that movie.
Yeah.
Most of them having to do with the movie itself. It's a very good movie.
Yep.
It's insanely entertaining.
Mm-hmm.
A film, and then it's the work that film has done in the culture over the course of the last year and a half or so.
Yeah.
So very, very good movie. Some really, really neat performances. Octavia Spencer rightly nominated for supporting something, whatever.
Yep.
And the score, one of the songs nominated. All good, very good, excellent. More important, is that this film revealed this history of these hidden figures, right?
Yes.
And I've only recently come to not hate that stupid title. Because I really don't like it. It's like that movie that's in theaters now, Their Finest, about the British. Terrible title. And I really felt that was a terrible title. But, I've come to get my heart wrapped around it.
Yeah.
That DVD is full of all kinds, the Blu-ray is full of all kinds of stuff.
We got some interesting, a lot of 4K stuff today, and the new movie section, we're gonna wrap out with another 4K, which I'm gonna keep under wraps because it's a big deal, and it's gonna dovetail into something else in a very interesting way. So there's a method to our madness today. But in terms of 4K, I think this is the kind of movie that needs to be on 4K. It's really richly, beautifully shot in that classic Hollywood style. It's very lush, very colorful, captures the period beautifully. it's classic 3-point lighting, right? It's all that stuff, and that really gives it a texture that 4K benefits from. The HDR, the 4K, all of that stuff really it really gives it that cinematic look. You really, really feel the richness. Beautifully done. Good extras on here, mostly featurette stuff, but there's some deleted scenes, which I thought was interesting, and a good audio commentary with the director, Theodore Melfi, and Taraji P. Henson, who kind of became the voice of the movie at a certain point. Did you notice that?
Yeah.
Taraji sort of became the movie's spokesperson during award season.
Yeah, interesting that given that she was not one of the nominees during that period. So I think maybe the Golden Globes or something. She might have been nominated over there. I really can't remember. But there she was out there.
Yeah.
Sort of.
She get the SAG Awards. She gave the acceptance speech when it won Best Ensemble.
It is important that film, along with Moonlight, which we talked about a while ago, but it did as well as it did. It moved a big chunk of the culture forward, the Hollywood culture anyway. The culture writ large, actually, forward, both about black folks in mainstream cinema, about women in mainstream cinema, about women in history. It's just so, dude, so much that movie was doing better, more than just being a good movie.
And I was on Film Week. We talked about this, and I'll tell you what I said on Film. What I said on Film Week was I watched this movie, and I feel like this is clearly a movie that's written and directed by white people. This is like a black story is told by white people, and it felt like that to me. At the same time, who am I to judge? Because everybody loved this movie.
What you said was true. I wasn't on that. I'm always listening.
Yeah.
What you said was absolutely true. You could say the same thing about that James Brown movie.
Totally.
Which was a popular movie, but it didn't resonate in the same way that this one does. Or go back to the other one, Octavia Spencer was in the Maid movie.
The Help.
The Help, that kind of.
Which I know you and I are both lukewarm on.
About these things. But this movie, because of the subject matter of the movie, right? These people, zero condescension in this movie.
True.
And I got to tell you, my boy Kevin Costner.
Yeah. He's great.
He's
fantastic.
He great?
He's fantastic.
And over the arc of his career, I'm going to do this piece. I'm going to call it Kevin Costner, movie star for the proletariat. For his entire career, Kevin has been playing these everyday guys, these blue collar. Kevin's from Compton.
Yeah.
Kevin Costner is a homie.
Yeah.
And what it is that showed up in his movies over even his Robin Hood, which is retarded, but right, he plays Robin Hood as like a homie.
Yeah.
I'm just down with the people.
And where I started to come down on Hidden Figures and realize that I'm kind of out of the loop with our friend Tina, who, Tina's a really kind of a seminal figure. She was one of the first black women on soap operas, daytime television. Tina Andrews went on to become a very successful screenwriter. The Sally Hemings miniseries, Jackie Onassis miniseries. Why Do Fools Fall in Love? So Tina has a miniseries coming out now through Amazon. So Tina is a significant figure, and Tina went nuts for Hidden Figures. And I thought, okay, so if I, as a white man, look at this and say, okay, this feels like it was done by a white guy, that's a legitimate feeling. But at the same time, if Tina, as a woman who's a pioneering black woman in her right, sees this film and connects to it, not my place to say that this film is missing something.
What you said is correct. So I have to acknowledge that what you said is actually right. This film is unequivocal. You sit down and watch this film. All black people who sat down to watch this film, everybody, this film made by a white dude.
Yeah.
It's insanely obvious. It's just that's not a problem.
Yeah.
You never cared about that. Never made any difference whatsoever. Except to Spike maybe once that one time. that one time. But he was wrong. That's not so much the issue. Content is the issue.
Yeah.
Treatment of content and character is the issue. But anybody can get at it. And the reason why that has to be true is because it has to be true the other way around.
Yeah.
So you got some film full of white folks doing whatever these people were doing. You got to be able to have a brother at the helm of that. And should be able to look at that movie and you know what? I think the filter of this film might be a brother or an Indian guy or a Pakistani or whatever. Feel it, but that's okay.
That's okay.
That's the way I love it, man.
Yep. All right. Let me.
We're gonna jump over to The Founder.
Jump over to The Founder.
Because I got to tell you, The Founder was a very vexing film. We should have felt about The Founder a lot of how we felt about Hidden Figures.
I thought that was going to be a big Oscar contender. I did.
At certainly Michael's performance, I thought it would have been.
Weinstein
But the founder
didn't get it out of it.
They wanted the filmmakers wanted to have this both ways. They wanted to explore this era, fine. They wanted to explore this sort of iconic American figure, fine.
Yeah.
And then when they walked up to the darker sides of this iconic American figure, because let's face it, Ray Kroc, he had some dark moments.
Yeah.
He liked his early Williams.
Yeah.
And the stuff with the wife and the other guy's wife, Joan Kroc, who everybody donated all that money to NPR, God bless her. They really skirted around all that stuff.
Yeah.
And simply did not want to go there, and I think that's what undermined the award chances for this movie, which is out on Blu-ray and DVD and digital HD, and it looks good there, but it undermines the movie, the fact that they just go there with the guy.
And I really love this story, and I think it's fine. They did an okay job sort of telling it, but they really didn't. They didn't pull out all the stops like I thought they might, but it's informative. It's a good story. I'm glad somebody told it, but
it's enjoyable. But I think that in this day and age, it would have been okay if they had just decided to actually go there. Did you see Split?
I did, and I know a lot of people are trying. They're really bending over backwards to say,
trying to help him.
Trying to help him on his way back. I know. I can't be on board this.
Yeah.
It's just first of all, multiple personalities is. I'm not one of those people that sort of feels like there are certain things that are above exploitation. There's nothing that's above exploitation. I mean, if you're going to make a movie about it, like a serial killing cancer patient, knock yourself out. So it's not that they have taken multiple personalities and turned it into kind of a thriller trope. I'm fine. You can do that. But it's just that it's so. I don't know. It's so just it takes such obvious turns.
Here's the thing. At the end of the day, I didn't see this movie because I wasn't on that week. I didn't have to see the movies, and I already knew that I didn't want to see. First of all, let's point this out: multiple personality disorder does not exist. Okay, doesn't exist. Despite what you remember from Sybil, 1970, whatever the hell,
and Three Faces of Eve.
Three Faces of Eve. It doesn't exist. It doesn't exist. Science has dismissed it. All right, primal fear, all of that. Doesn't exist. All right, so that's fine too. Don't care. I don't care. We used to make diseases up all the time. Medical center, all that kind of stuff. So that's fine. Don't care about that. If you do one of these and you, as the filmmakers, take it remotely seriously, I'm going to stab you out. And that's the problem, is that we keep taking this seriously, and you can't take it seriously. Anyway, this is fine.
It's just too MacGuffin-y. It's like it's a MacGuffin wrapped in a McMuffin wrapped in a whatever. It's just got too many of them, and I kind of want him to do a real movie again. I want James McAvoy to be an actor again. I want him to do something like Atonement again, right?
Yeah.
Where he takes he has it in him, and he's just become like this guy that does X-Men movies, and then occasionally he'll do something like this, and he's just raking in so much cash now. He doesn't feel like he needs to be a real actor anymore, and that's sad to me because he's better than that.
Yeah. Anyway, what are you gonna do?
I got a couple of Blu-rays here. And they're kind of, this is middling stuff, but if you want to kind of pad out your Blu-ray collection with some things
concept, I call those concept movies.
Yeah.
Somebody had an idea for a movie, the concept seems cool, it'll cost $1.95 to do, so let's make the damn movie.
So Tank 432 is executive produced, not directed by, executive produced by Ben Wheatley, who Tim and I actually like, A Field in England.
Field in England. I mean,
cool
several for he and his wife.
Yeah, they do all those things. So Ben Wheatley obviously saw something that was kind of in his wheelhouse, and he decided to throw it a little bit of a bone and give it an executive producer backing. This is kind of this Mad Maxy story about these mercenaries. And it's kind of like if there was some kind of a war on terror thing happening in a Mad Max kind of environment. But it all kind of is about this. There's a hostage thing. It's in an abandoned tank.
Yes.
and there's things that are revealed thereafter. Things, you're sort of, it's like you find yourself in the middle of a Russian nesting doll, and you sort of work your way out. And I won't give you any other details about that, but it's not bad.
Not much of it happens too far from that tank.
Yeah, but it's interesting, and it's Nick Gillespie, who wrote and directed it, is a guy who will do something very, very interesting when somebody gives him a bigger budget. But it's an interesting little movie to check out. Tank 432 on Blu-ray, and then Punching Henry, which has some interesting performances in it, mainly from J.K. Simmons, who's doing a lot of interesting stuff, and Sarah Silverman, who shows up in this as well. This is on Blu-ray. And it is not as funny as it thinks it is. But
Tig Notaro is in it, and she is supposed to provide that sort of comedic thing.
Yeah. And I don't really know Tig Notaro.
She's a comedian, sort of a bright, sort of self-evasive, very revealing sort of comedian.
Yeah.
Wrote a book or something about her, all kinds of horrible things that happened to her.
Well, this is a little bit of a little twist on Whiplash. J.K. Simmons is this TV producer who's going to try to turn a comedian into a reality star, and there are a lot of inside jokes. It's very meta. It's got people like Doug Stanhope show up, and Sarah Silverman, as I said before, people that who have some recognizability. It's probably means more to stand-up comics and people in reality television than it would to your average person, but it's got some there's some nice little insights to it, so it's not bad.
What do I got over here? I got Walking with the Enemy.
Oh my gosh, this thing.
Ben Kingsley's in it though.
Ben King's. This is a. Oh gosh, I saw this so long ago before they. This thing has been sort of in the mix for a long time. It's another one of those World War II. One of those allegedly true World War II stories.
Yeah.
And I wonder how much of it is embellished. It's Hungarian. Takes place in Hungary. Ben Kingsley plays, the president of Hungary, who sort of is dealing with Nazi occupation and trying to hold his country together, and even while it's occupied and all this. And the Ben Kingsley stuff has nothing to do with the rest of the main story.
Like a little thriller that's going on in the background with the guy disguised as the Nazi guy.
Yeah, and he's disguising himself as a Nazi in order to sort of
guy,
it's what it means. The Hungarian Jew disguising himself as a Nazi in order to sort of undermine the. Anyway, it's a bit of a silly story. It doesn't really hang together very well. I question just how much of it really is based on fact and how much they embellished. But the whole posing as a Nazi thing has been done a few times before, and it's usually it never really rings true.
Yeah,
it never really does.
Quentin used it in his,
exactly. People, it's freaking Hogan's Heroes. You throw on some Nazi uniforms and you speak with a German accent, and you're gonna get a pass. I don't think so.
You must be one of them.
It just doesn't quite work. And then I got a thing here from Breaking Glass called Actor Martinez. This is by Nathan Silver and Mike Ott. I don't quite know how to describe this. It is it's kind of a film within a film, one of those things about a guy who's a computer technician who gets wants to be a movie star, and he gets a couple of filmmakers to put him in it. And it's a little bit more acerbic than it probably should be, but it's kind of funny at the same time. I wasn't quite sure how to sort of swallow the tone of this. It's very artsy. If that sound, I don't know, man. It's kind of, it's got a weird vibe to it, and it reminds me in some ways of what was the Ernest Borgnine, the old Mistress.
Oh, Mistress.
Remember Mistress?
Oh, yeah.
It feels like Mistress, only not funny and more, maybe a little more vinegar, a little more bitter, a little more cynical about the business. Anyway, Actor Martinez. Check it out. If you've ever worked on an independent film or tried to work on an independent film, and you understand some of the minefields that are a part of that process, this probably will mean something to you. If you're otherwise, not so much.
About movies like In the Soup.
Yeah, that as well.
Way back.
In the Soup's another one. No. Christie's work. Christie
Another
worked on
the other
a different Buscemi film.
yeah, you go there.
Yeah.
The one he directed. So anyway, I got the bounce back here. This is one of these little. I like these movies because they're family oriented and they're funny. And Steve Harvey does a lot of them. But this is Shamar Moore and Nadine Velasquez and Bill Bellamy. Bill Bellamy. Who looks exactly the same as he did 20 years ago when he was in Love Jones. It's the 20-year anniversary of Love Jones.
Oh, really?
Yeah. Which is interesting because this film actually stems out of that film. That film is probably like the progenitor of the next 20 years worth of these little sort of like black relationship movies, right? So you have Shamar Moore, and he's this guy who's just sort of like a relationship guru guy. Wrote a book and all that kind of stuff. And then you have Nadine Velasquez, who's the host of one of these talk shows. And they are it's one of these opposites attract sort of things. He sort of falls for her. But in doing so, he has to reveal a whole bunch of things about himself. He has a daughter. It's really cute. It's really funny. This is a DVD. Not a whole lot on this, but it's neat in the way that it is. The Bounce Back is the name of that. Speaking of the Love Jones. And doing research for a piece, I looked up Theodore Whitcher, right? Theodore Whitcher wrote and directed Love Jones.
Yeah.
You know what else Theodore Whitcher wrote and directed? Nothing. Literally nothing. If you look him up on the IMDb,
That's sad.
You will see he wrote another movie that he didn't direct, and then fairly decent movies. Forrest Whitaker and some people in '98. But basically, Love Jones, 1997, quintessential movie. Theodore Whitcher wrote and directed it, and nothing else. A buddy of ours, Sherman, did a Denny's commercial with Theodore Whitcher. So who knows? Maybe he just decided, making commercials to make more money. But it's super duper weird that the writer-director of a film that iconic did not direct anything else.
Fascinating. That happened. Those one-hit wonders happen every once in a while.
It's for all kinds of reasons. But it's weird. Anyway, The Bounce Back is the name of the movie I was talking about.
All right. Let's see what else we got here. Mad Families. Charlie. So my good boy Charlie, who I've known for a long time, Charlie Sheen. Here's the thing. I haven't actually seen Charlie in a number of years. Last time I saw him, when he went to television, that was like when I haven't seen it. I saw him at some press events when he was still making some movies. And then he went to TV and became ridiculously highly paid. And then his life, like, he torpedoed his life. And I just wanted to reach out there and just say, dude, come on, pull it together. But he's kind of pulling it together. So the anger management show didn't really pan out after that whole two and a half men thing blew up and his tour and his, we went on just all that deep end stuff winning. But he's now in this straight to DVD movie, which may be kind of a career correction for him. And I don't think it's terrible. Mad Families is not particularly a great movie. It's kind of it's like a second tier Adam Sandler type movie.
Well, Fred Wolf.
Yeah.
Who's a Saturday Night Live writer, director guy,
wrote Joe Dirt and all that. Yeah. So, I mean, here's the idea. It's basically, it's like Caddyshack at a campsite. Is that a fair way of maybe describing this? People who just or any of these movies like Neighbors is another one of these where you take a domestic situation. The last place you expect to necessarily see a full-on war is between neighbors or on a golf. Well, this is a campsite, which is the all-American place where people get together and are supposed to be friends and neighbors. And in point of fact, that does not happen. It's 4th of July holiday. And this is a camping spot in the weekend, and it just turns into this crazy competition between families that just gets completely out of hand. Charlie's funny in it, still got his chops. Leah Remini's in it. She's been in the news a lot lately. Efren Ramirez, very funny from Napoleon Dynamite. So, yeah, I mean, it's as far as straight-to-video productions go, this is you could do worse. So I give it a pass.
Good. Cowgirl Story?
Cowgirl Story. Well, these last two real quickly here.
If you haven't seen Pat Boone in a while, you can catch him in Cowgirl Story.
And Bailey Madison, who's really growing up quite well and becoming a very, very good young actress. Yeah, this is just a girl and her grandfather and a horse. That tells you everything you need to know. Pat Boone's the grandfather, and the horse is the horse. And it has a little war angle, right?
Well, yeah, her parents, both of her parents are away in the
Afghanistan,
war.
right?
Yeah,
It's got a sort of for a little contemporary news relevance, but otherwise it's still it's about a girl and a horse, and that's ultimately and all those
Can't
movies.
hurt yourself making a movie about a girl.
As far back as what was the Elizabeth Taylor thing?
The Black Beauty, American.
No.
No, American. What was it?
It's American something.
Yeah.
Anyway, that's when it starts.
Anyway, it's about a big black horse and a girl.
And then Walmart exclusive Isolation with Stephen Lang, who I always enjoy, and Dominic Purcell, who I also always enjoy. Marie Avgeropoulos is the
Shane Dax Taylor. He's one of the progenitors of.
He's the director.
Yeah, the director of this movie. Who also made Bloodworth. That whole Southern Gothic thing that was happening there for a while. He's one of those guys. He gave us Mud and a few other things. So he's a good director.
Yeah, he definitely is. It's a straight down the middle thriller. It's rock solid. It's got some good little twists in it. It's not a big screen type thing, but it works. It absolutely works. So you got
a Walmart exclusive.
And it's one of those it's all vacation gone wrong in the Bahamas, right, on an island.
Dominic Purcell.
It's one of those paradise turns to hell allegories, and anyway, it's perfectly solid. All right, so that's it for new movie stuff this week. We got comics and whatnot, really interesting. Let's get into some TV here.
Okay.
We got some interesting DC stuff. We've got a couple of really cool box sets, some cool little toy action here. I should have our friend Luke Thompson on because Luke's the toy expert. He knows all this stuff. So we got little figurine comes in Justice League Dark, which is a Blu-ray DVD combo, and you also got a figurine in Blu-ray DVD combo box of Teen Titans: The Judas Contract. And I
kind of dug the Teen Titans. I usually don't care for the Tiny Titans or whatever that kind of. Teen Titans was kind of okay with me.
But these come with Ultraviolet as well, and it's all rooted in, especially Justice League Dark. It's all based very firmly in the graphic novel world. And I keep saying this on this show, and I really wish that they would get the people who write these shows to write the live action ones.
Yeah.
Give them a shot. You're hiring all the wrong people.
Yeah. Well, you're right.
These guys have one good solid foot in the comics world. They understand the characters and the relationships, and they're much better than the guys who've been writing the feature stuff.
And frankly, the sort of deep story content stuff, they both know about it and care about it. The thing about the cats who, the new Guardians of the Galaxy is queued up. Come out here in a second. Is they all claim, well, I do the junkets and I interview these writers, directors, whoever's doing it. Oh, we're big fans of the original.
Yeah,
we love it. All this kind of stuff. But you know what? It doesn't show up in the movies. It doesn't seem like you knew that story at all.
I know. I know.
I know. And if you saw that new Thor Ragnarok trailer, those people do not know that storyline. That's a very engaging trailer. But I can tell you right now, those people do not know that Ragnarok storyline.
No, they don't.
Would have never made that dumbass trailer.
Aren't you glad that Jeff Goldblum is back in the mix for summer movies, though?
Yeah.
I'm so glad to have him back.
Yeah, you can't hurt yourself.
It kind of looks like Gamesters of Triskalia in the Star Trek episode. I almost think that people are going to start bidding Quatloos on Thor and Hulk. Anyway. So Justice League Dark is really, really cool. It takes place in Metropolis and Gotham City, and there's something apocalyptic and supernatural happening. John Constantine shows up here. It's really, really well animated. It's really well written. It's really sharp, and you get a toy. And then Teen Titans: The Judas Contract, similarly, really well written. Nice gift set here. It's a slight notch below Justice League Dark, which is just terrific. But you got Starfire and Beast Boy and Raven and Robin, of course, looking all cool and not very Robin-y, and Brother Blood, Deathstroke. It's a great adventure. So all good stuff right there.
You got the good wife over there.
Yep.
seasons, two boxes, seasons 1 through 4 in the first box,
Yep.
seasons 5 through 7 in the second
Yep.
box. You know, I always really like The Good Wife. This is the complete series. 156 episodes, 42 discs.
And I admit I did not. I saw a few episodes of the show, but I've not really been a faithful follower.
I was the first, second season guy. Basically, I just dug the concept. The concept of the show basically is Cook County Attorney General gets arrested in a sex and corruption scandal. His wife, who had always been a lawyer but had been doing the whole housewife thing, has to come into the breach, take over the law firm, blah blah blah, all this kind of stuff. It's a women's empowerment series.
And Juliana Margulies did this right out of ER.
Right out of ER.
Yeah.
And it's, you know, and I dug it for that reason, and it's really smart. And now there's a series on. I think they got a new series on called the Good Attorney. I forget whatever. Kristen Baranski. Anyway, that's a neat series. All kinds of special features in the box as well.
Yeah, good stuff. All right, so we're going to now bump into our interview with Mark Sanderson, a longtime friend and screenwriter, about his terrific new book. Here we are. And we are talking with a longtime personal friend of both Mark's and mine, a very old friend of mine from both high school and film school, who is also a friend of the podcast. We've interviewed him on the podcast before. He is a working screenwriter, and now the author of a brand new book on screenwriting, where he is sharing many of the things that he has learned over many years and many films. And we are proud and happy to welcome Mark Sanderson back to the podcast. Mark, thanks for being with us.
Thank you, guys. I really appreciate coming on again.
So go ahead and tell us the name of the book and where people can find it.
Well, the book's title is A Screenwriter's Journey to Success, Tips, Tricks, and Tactics to Survive as a Working Screenwriter in Hollywood. And it's available on Amazon now as a paperback or Kindle. And it's basically, encapsulates my last 20 years of working, in Hollywood's trenches, and the reasoning, I started blogging like 5-6 years ago. And after a number of years, I didn't quite realize that I had enough material for a book. So originally I didn't set out to write a book because it's a very daunting task, and only having written screenplays before, I sort of snuck up, like I say, on the book. And once I had enough material, and then I started, fabricating the chapters and writing it, like it says, a screenwriter's journey to success. So it plots my start as a Super 8 filmmaker, and having a dream when our mutual friend Matt Reeves received a camera from his grandfather, Super 8 camera, we started making films. And that was the initial spark that stuck with me. And, all of us who later met to become a filmmaker. So then the process of making films on your own in high school and outside, and going to film school. And then, of course, I thought I'd have, outside of UCLA film school, a 3-picture deal walking out. Here's your diploma and here's your deal. And so for me personally, it was about 6 years out of film school before I had my first professional, minor success, but my first door that opened that I was actually paid as a writer. And that particular spec screenplay I sold took about 7 years from the time that I started writing it to when it actually the cameras rolled. So it's been a long journey, as each project has its own life,
And that first script, that was I'll Remember April with Pat Morita.
Yes.
Yeah.
Thank you very much. It was, yes.
The wonderful late Pat Morita, and you were a bit ahead of the curve too in the subject that dealt with, which is Japanese and Los Angeles and World War II, and there were a lot of other films that dealt with that thereafter. So I remember it well. That was right on the cusp of a thing.
Yes.
So the book itself, which I have read, and which I think is just such an amazing and a refreshing addition to the body of screenwriting books. Most of them you read, and it's usually written by a professor or a seminar guru who's just giving you their opinion of what constitutes great structure and what kind of screenplays they think you should be writing. And the thing that I love about yours is you're not imposing your idea of storytelling on anybody. You're expressing. You're basically giving them coaching in what it takes to bring out the best writer in them, to sort of find who they are as a writer, to develop the work ethics and the strategies necessary to make whatever it is that they write successful. And that's something I haven't read before. So talk a little bit about sort of philosophically where the book comes from for you.
Yeah, you're exactly right about that. I didn't, far be it for me to tell anybody how to write a screenplay. I've read all the gurus' books and then, taken pieces from here and there and then my own philosophies. So I didn't want to write a book like that. It would have been actually boring for me to say, oh, you must open with this. I thought my particular skill set is more in the survival, in the trenches, and going back, with there are stories in the book, but it's not just about, like a memoir. It opens with how I got my start. My family was not in the film business, so there was no nepotism there. I had to actually, claw and, learn and, do whatever to try to make what success I've had. But, it's also inspirational because a lot of times people were reading either tweets and they always would say, which I like, is that, I give a realistic approach, but I'm always optimistic and hopeful. And so I think I've run into a lot of aspiring young screenwriters and they think, they're just going to write one screenplay and it's going to, set the world on fire and they'll have a, career, fame, fortune, and glory. And, I try to say in the book from my own stories and, also going back, I had a writing partner at one point for 7 years, Andrew Raperto, who you know. And I had to go back at him and say, remember those meetings that we had, those crazy, and a lot of times he wouldn't remember things. And then I would spur his memory or mine and going back to those, using those as examples. So the disciplines that I've learned, I say, well, here's a scenario that it actually was useful in, or I learned a lesson from that meeting, so it's that kind of thing. It's in chapters. I tried to write it a journey, truly. So it goes through, the screenplay, and it talks about the work and, the daily life of a screenwriter, called to duty in the depths of hell. I mean, you're going to be the person at 2 a.m. trying to figure out why the script doesn't work. Yeah. That the producer has unleashed upon you. And also the thing about assignment work, you're not going to sell specs your whole career. The one spec I did sell opened the door for, I just finished my 17th assignment. So that's the bread and butter of, working writers, is to be paid. Yeah. We all love our specs and we want to, they're necessary. But I tell aspirants that your specs are your training tools, to learn how to not overwrite and how to really nail a first draft. Don't make it a vomit draft where you're just throwing stuff at a wall, because you're not going to have that luxury when you do get a job. And I stress that it is a job. The romanticized image a lot of people have of the red carpets, and sometimes you're not even invited to, you're like, hi, remember me? I wrote the film. Oh yeah, right. I mean, I was at screening once and I was sitting next to the lead actors and eating popcorn, sharing with them. And the producer gets up, and this is a big theater, and he goes, we want to thank everybody's here. And he points out, blah, blah, blah. And, oh my God, they were so great. And he goes, so-and-so. And I was I'm going to be mentioned next. And he goes, and Freddie did fantastic with the sushi at craft service. And they go, let's roll the film. And the actors turned and looked at me, and I was like mortified. I was like, yeah, well, what do you say? I just wrote the movie, So, many times you're not going to get the validation you expect. And, as a job, you have the same requirements, responsibilities, and there's money on the line. And I put in the book that was the hardest thing when I first started getting paid. You have to be creative under a deadline, and there's money involved, and there's pressure there. But after a while, you do rise to the occasion, as a working writer, and that's just the way it is. It's your job,
You have a great story in the book as well. That really goes to the heart of what it means to sort of find yourself with one foot in each world at a certain point, which is very telling, because I think what you just said is true. People think that there's going to be that moment where boom, your life changes and you let go of the rope and your yacht sails off into into the harbor of wealth and riches and fame, and you have a great moment that's very sobering. Talk about that story.
Well, the day, every screenwriter wants to be in Variety or a Hollywood Reporter.
Yeah.
You're in the trades. I mean, it was my life's dream. And so finally I was in the trades because a company that bought my film, the script that I wrote, it was a brand new company. And so they had the cover of the Variety, brand new company, blah, blah, blah. And then I flipped through and I mentioned on page 15 or wherever it was. And it was, a couple paragraphs about me. So that day I was like, wow, my movie's marching down through development. I've been paid. I'm a professional writer. But it wasn't enough money to pay the bills, believe it or not, because the way money's, step deals come and stuff. So it really wasn't enough to quit a job, which I've never really had a day job. I waited tables for 10 years. I've done all these other, different jobs to get by. So this was a catering job with this rinky-dink company. And so the day that I was in, I went and bought like a stack of copies, and I was on my way to do the job, which was in Beverly Hills at this giant estate. And I won't name the producer because I don't name names in the book, but he's a mega producer, multi-billionaire. And I was sort of blindsided by, my friend was the supervisor. So the two of us knuckleheads pull up to this estate, and there's security everywhere. Highway Patrol, LAPD, undercover. I was like, wow, somebody must be – and there's a dignitary there. So we walk into the producer's house, and there's the former prime minister of a, Middle Eastern country there. And dignitaries and Secret Service everywhere. And so then I was like, oh my gosh, I don't know this guy personally, but I know him as a producer. And I thought how ironic was that, his company could have, rejected my script. And here I am in his inner sanctum serving him coffee for breakfast. It's like, so beware of the screenwriter who you treat unkindly, because he just might end up, in your house, at a catering party. And so we worked the day out, and my friend always pushed me. He said, get in the other room. They always want to see somebody. And he didn't want to, have the pressure of having to be in the main room. And so I heard, they said, oh, Mr. Prime Minister, are you going to run for election again? And I'm pouring coffee at that point, and our eyes meet, and he's like, no more coffee, thank you. I said, oh, so I'm hearing like inside information, It's like, oh my gosh. So the day ends, we get paid, and we leave. And I go out to my car and I sit down. I look in the passenger seat at the covers of Variety, and I'm like, wow, this is just. I wish it was a film crew following, because this is like more of the reality of Hollywood. You can have a foot in both worlds, and you really can mess with your head, if you don't stay grounded, because a lot of times it doesn't mean anything, like you think it does. Oh, a script sells, like you said, and your life changes overnight. It doesn't. It means now you have to do it again and again to have a career, and you have to have people want to hire you and build those relationships. And that's a big point in the book. I talk about, relationships and networking and the professional work ethic. So, it's a long, and the book, I'm glad it's done. I don't say it almost killed me, but it was a long process to get right the way that I wanted. But I'm very happy it now has its own life, like a child. It's like, you're out of the house, go have your life. Call me when you send, some good news. But I want it to be sort of a guide for, the screenwriters that are up and coming, to take a couple of nuggets from, and maybe they won't suffer the same pitfalls.
Yeah.
Which will always be out there. And also the attitude adjustment a little bit. So that's why I say there's a fine line between optimism, but a little bit of realism there with some anecdotal stories, and it goes right up to the point of today, so I wrote it up to the point of what's happening in my life today. So it still continues. Like I said, at the end, it says fade out the end of the book, but my journey continues,
Well, there's so many great bits in there, and the thing that really struck me the most is the importance of work ethic and really committing yourself to doing it. Because I think I know we both know so many writers who treat it as kind of a casual thing. Well, I'll wait until the juices flow. I'll see if I'm kind of feeling the vibe, and then I'll sit down. I'll write for 3 hours. And, you've done deadline work, which I find to be so daunting, where you've had 2 or 3 weeks to do something, or and it's a phenomenal amount of work that you have to do every single day to meet that deadline. That's something I think most people don't realize.
I just finished a gig where I had 14 days, and I was going to finish in 12, which I never did before. It was such a challenge because usually, you get a month and some, maybe 8 weeks if you're lucky. But boy, if you're not training yourself when you're doing your specs and you're like, I can just do a page a day and one next week, that's why I say if you're writing specs, keep on that schedule as if you did have a boss that was going to, you had a deadline because boy, you're right. 14 page, one day I did 14 pages, which is a big undertaking. It's full day of writing. So it's like when you're a runner as well, like I am, and you have to build up your endurance. You just can't get out there and run 8 miles.
Yeah.
And it's the same thing. I think with writing, you're going to have to sit down and be able to focus uninterrupted for a long period of time when it's your job.
Yeah.
That's why a lot of writers have offices away from their house because they don't want the interruptions. It's just you and the blank page. And like I say, we're all equal. I've written 33 scripts. This one I just turned in was my 33rd feature. And I still am humbled by the craft. That's what I put in the book. Never think you're bigger than the craft because, you will be humbled by Hollywood and the craft of screenwriting because there's still things to know every time out. It makes it easier. Sure. You can, your way around the house, but there's always a piece of furniture that's there. Suddenly the lights go out and you're like, oh my gosh, you have to rely back. Sometimes it's funny because I start freaking out and stressing out, and someone told me recently, said, hey, you should really get this book. And I go, oh yeah, what book's that? And they go, well, it's, and they started, baiting me. And they go, oh, you mean my book? And they go, yeah, you're not following your own discipline. I go, yeah, I forgot it. I fell out of,
Well, it's a terrific book. It really is, and it's a good read. And Matt was very kind and wrote you an introduction for it too, which is perfect, pretty great timing with Planet of the Apes coming out right on the heels of the book.
J.J. Abrams too, and Brian Trenchard Smith, a veteran director, and that's why I talk about those relationships with those people. The directors I've worked with have become friends and mentors. And besides the company that hired me, and I met them through the producer, we've gone on to pitch other things together. And, I worked on Bitter Harvest, which was out recently, as a production consultant. And, you never know where it goes. That's why it's so important to keep those relationships.
Well, Mark, thank you so much for talking to us. I hope I know a lot of our listeners will take this to heart and give us the title of the book once again, available at Amazon.
Yes, A Screenwriter's Journey to Success: Tips, Tricks, and Tactics to Survive as a Working Screenwriter in Hollywood.
And of course, they can look up your name, Mark Sanderson. Yeah. That is S-O-N. We will urge them to do so, and we'll get a link on the podcast as well.
Fantastic. Again, thanks, guys, so much for having me.
Terrific. Thanks, Mark. All righty. There it is. Mark Sanderson, Screenwriter's Guide to Success.
Mark.
And it's
another Mark, different Mark.
Another Mark. It is, and it is a really good book for all the reasons that we talked about. So
Mark is a working screenwriter. Yeah. He's a guy who is a journeyman working screenwriter.
Yeah, and it's all the stuff that he talked about in the interview, which is that you don't go out there and just sell specs all the time. You get assignments.
Yeah. He's kind of like from the old school of guys back in the day, because a lot of cats, they are wherever they are, they live wherever they live. They bang out some screenplay, pick up Sid Field or whatever the hell.
Yeah.
And bang out some screenplay, and they think, oh well, I got that now, and well, you know what? Most of the people in this town who make a living as a screenwriter do it on the strength of the stuff that they've written before, that's been made into films, stuff like I mean, he's a working screenwriter.
Anyway, let's get back into some TV stuff. Got a couple of really cool British titles here. One from Acorn, Agatha Christie's Witness for the Prosecution, which is, this is an Acorn TV original done for the Acorn TV streaming service. And this is something that's been, done before. We're all familiar with it. Agatha Christie is not an unknown quantity. She's all over the place. We've got, hundreds of hours of Poirot and Miss Marple. But this is really, really good. I think they did a fabulous job. Really interesting casting. Toby Jones and Kim Cattrall.
Yeah.
Really terrific and beautifully done, really well written, nice adaptation, doesn't feel old and dusty like in the 70s. Really, really very good. And I just love how Kim Cattrall sort of ages into, she's aging so well into all these different parts in a very interesting way.
Always has Kim Cattrall.
All the way back to Mannequin.
My first Kim Cattrall, Porky's.
Yeah.
Kim
Oh, that's
Cattrall was in
right.
Porky's.
Oh, wow. Well, anyway, this takes place in London in the 1920s. And Kim Cattrall is the victim of a murder, and next thing you know, we're stuck in a whodunit, and it's all really, really stylish and just very clever and very nicely done. This is a particularly long. This is over 2 hours long, but it doesn't feel that long. It really breezes by.
It's really 2 episodes.
Yeah.
Julian Harold did that.
Right.
Kinky Boots.
Yeah, that's right.
Who did we interview for you and I interviewed?
Oh, did we interview Chiwetel?
That's
Chewy.
We
interviewed Chewy, yeah. And then the complete second season of Home Fires, which is part of PBS's masterpiece. And this comes over as yet another great World War II era British television series. They just, there's no end to them. And this is just really, really great. There's a touch of Hope and Glory as a TV series in this a little bit, which is great. Anything to do with the home front in the UK during World War II, during the Battle of Britain and all of that stuff is really, really great because it had just this tremendous... Mrs. Miniver, it kind of begins this genre in some respect.
Stalwart women standing...
Women and holding it down and men who didn't go to fight, who are maybe too old or too young, whatever the case is. The whole British home front during the Battle of Britain, really great stuff. And they do such a good job. Production value is top-notch. Continues to be a great show. Home Fires, complete second season. Really, really great cast on this, too. Francesca Annis, for crying out loud. Just such a lovely actress.
Outstanding. Are we going to pop over to a couple other ones?
Yeah, let me mention real quickly another Acorn series. This is season 2, part 1 of 800 Words, which is kind of gaining some popularity. This is not British per se. This is Australian. Takes place in Sydney, and it's contemporary, present day. But this is a good show and getting better. Actually, I don't know why we're separating season 2 into different parts. I have to inquire with the Acorn people and find out what prompted that. But because that's an American thing that's really annoying. But still, this is really good. The whole thing here is about Australian, New Zealand guy who used to work in Australia. He's moved to New Zealand, and he was he's a newspaper columnist and trying to sort of have start his life all over after in the wake of tragedy. Yeah. Anyway, so that's there's a lot of really great down under stuff culturally and otherwise, and I think this is really sharp. So it's also very explicit. It like as shows from Australia and New Zealand tend to be. So yeah. Just be prepared for that. You're going to see some things and probably enjoy some things.
I love it.
Anyway. And then Silicon Valley.
Now that's an interesting series. I started watching Mike Judge.
Yeah,
a big Mike Judge fan, of course. What's most interesting about this series, just about everybody who has worked on this series, all those series regulars have gone on to do something else interesting, be it an independent film or another series or probably just about every one of them. Anyway, it's a funny series, relatively speaking. This is the complete third season. Look, the guy who wrote and directed Office Space is going to be okay with me, no matter what he does. And this sort of like lives in that zone a little bit. It's kind of wacky, kind of funny about these guys. A little bit raw, a little bit interesting. It's fun. So I don't know if you're into it. 11 Emmy nominations. This original HBO series. This is the Blu-ray DVD. Not bad at all. Mars. I don't know if you've been watching this one, the National Geographic
I have
series,
not.
Mars.
I've been meaning to. It's the Ron Howard thing, right?
Yeah. You know, an interesting sort of undertaking. I like the idea. Don't particularly like the series. I like all of the sort of documentary style cutaways, right? So this is the first mission to Mars. Is what's going on here. Brian Grazer and Ron Howard doing this for the National Geographic. It really is astounding looking. That's for sure. The journey to Mars, where they're going to establish, this colony and all that kind of stuff. That's the less interesting part of this series. So whenever we're in the narrative stuff, the sort of movie making stuff, less interesting. You think it would be the other way around. Now, when we're in the stuff that's basically quasi-documentary, talking heads and stuff like that, frankly, that stuff is fascinating here. It's the exact reverse of what you would think it would be from the director of Apollo 13.
Right.
You'd think he'd get the doc stuff wrong
Right.
and get the movie stuff right. Here, the movie stuff, not so, I don't know, whatever. It's a little marginal, a little dark. That's one thing I don't like about it, particularly after having seen that Matt Damon movie.
Yeah.
Which was, despite all the thrills and everything like that, a pretty upbeat kind of movie.
Yeah, surprisingly and funny.
This is a real downer trip to Mars that these guys are taking. And it's all works out. And nevertheless, anyway, over 2 hours, a National Geographic series, Blu-ray. Mars.
Beautiful. And then we got, last on the TV end, Legend of Bruce Lee. We did a giveaway of the first season of that. That is now in volume 2. The heavily fictionalized but very, very well done narrative story of Bruce Lee's life as a TV series. This is from Well-Go, and 3 discs in here carrying on the story of Bruce Lee in another 10 episodes, stretching it out a little bit more than it probably needs to. But you know what? I still think it's really, really good. Danny Chan is really a terrific actor to play the part of Bruce Lee. He does a really good job. And, sure, they pad this with all kinds of stuff in here that just really didn't happen in Bruce Lee's life. But it's okay. It's a good show. It's a good time. And 10 more episodes in The Legend of Bruce Lee.
Can't go wrong with that. Bruce Lee has come back up recently in the culture. I think his daughter put out
Shannon
put out a compendium of his with screenplays, all, but all annotated with his own personal notes.
Oh, that's great.
He was sort of like working through all.
I didn't realize that.
Yeah, it was really little bits of haiku and all kinds of things that he wrote.
Yeah. Okay, and we're going to get on to some classic movies and wrap the show out at that point. Got a few here from our Warner Archive collection. 2 DVDRs and 1 Blu-ray. The Blu-ray is such a treat. This is fantastic. This is the CinemaScope classic World Without End. Warner Archive on Blu-ray. Starring Hugh Marlowe and Nancy Gates. You ever heard of Hugh Marlowe and Nancy Gates? Probably not, because they were kind of, B-movie people. But, boy, CinemaScope, a CinemaScope B-movie sci-fi spectacular. This is just a riot, a stone-cold, hilarious riot, and in a really affectionate way. You didn't really use widescreen at the time on kind of B movies, but they did in this case, and what a lot of fun it is. It's from 1956, same year as such big epics as the 10 Commandments was 1956, Around the World in 80 Days. So you have the very, very first Mars mission here, which winds up turning into a time travel disaster, and they wind up in the future, and apes have taken... No, sorry, a different movie. Anyway, this is a post-apocalyptic future. Everything's been devastated, kind of like, a little bit like what you see in the Time Machine, the old George Pal Time Machine. It's got a few things borrowed from that concept, and it's all very titillating and low budget, and it looks like it was shot in Pacoima. It's quite a lot of fun. So World Without End, definitely check that out. That's a whole lot of fun on Blu-ray. Beautiful, beautiful, beautiful CinemaScope. And then DVD-R releases include John Bowles and Jack Oakey, the great Jack Oakey, comic legend, along with Ida Lupino in Fight for Your Lady.
Yeah.
This is a lot of fun. Good old classic black and white kind of programmer where you is set in the world of wrestling. And, I always think of the Coen brothers
Oh, not the Hudson, Barton Fink.
Barton Fink, thank you.
Yeah,
It's a Wallace Beery wrestling movie.
Need a Wallace Beery picture.
Wallace Beery wrestling movie. What do you need? You got Wallace Beery wrestling. What else do you need? Fantastic. So anyway, this is literally one of those movies. It's set in the world of wrestling, and it's a lot of fun. It's a programmer. Not don't expect a ton out of it, but it's a lot of fun. And then this is the one I really thought was great. Miriam Hopkins, Joel McCrea, and Fay Wray in The Richest Girl in the World. This is just beautifully, beautifully shot, really nicely put together from 1934, an RKO film, which is about a woman, and I don't know to what degree this has any real root in real events, but this is about a woman whose parents were killed on the Titanic, and she is now just this incredibly wealthy kind of Paris Hilton of her day, and she becomes kind of a, what are we going to call, sort of a bit of a recluse, and I don't like. Well, she's not really a recluse. She's, let's say, just very private. Let's just say she's turned her life into a super kind of a very private enclave of a life, and into that there enters Joel McCrea, who is the guy that sort of disrupts this very closely secluded world. It's really interesting. It has a lot to say about celebrity culture then, celebrity culture now. And it's a little melodramatic, but honestly, for a film that's kind of sitting on the edge of pre-code, I thought it was really, really interesting. So, The Richest Girl in the World, Miriam Hopkins, Joel McCrea, Fay Wray, definitely worth checking out.
Can't go wrong with Joel McCrea anyway.
No.
The Handmaid Tales. This is 1990. This is one of the first films that I covered, did a junket for.
Oh wow!
Yeah, Harold Pinter's adaptation of Margaret Atwood's sort of futuristic dystopian novel in a future where most women are infertile. And the late Natasha Richardson, Liam Neeson's late wife, played that character, Faye Dunaway, Robert Duvall. I remember that being a very good movie.
Directed by Volker Schlondorf, who had done the Tin Drum.
Yeah, 79, the year I graduated from high school, 79 he did that. And I remember that. It's interesting in that a re-envisioning of The Handmaid's Tale is running now on one of the streaming services. I'm going to say Hulu, maybe.
Yeah.
But whichever. But the point of it is that this story, which was a feature film in 1990, adapted by Harold Pinter, exact same. Today, it's a streaming movie. Still, a wonderful sort of a turn for it, but it just goes to show you where the media has moved over the last several years. Also, A League of Their Own. I got to tell you,
anniversary edition
of Lear, 25th year anniversary. Man, oh man, oh man! Who'd have thought? Madonna, Tom Hanks, Gina Davis, Lori Petty. Lori Petty's a friend of mine. This is a really extraordinary film, directed by Penny Marshall, who I'm going to put in the category, despite the fact that Penny had a perfectly fine career as a director, perfectly fine career. I'm still going to put her in the category of a woman whose career should have been bigger. Had she been a man, had she been her brother, for instance, who passed away, a year ago, 2 years ago, Penny's career would have been as big as his. The films that she made were that good. This is a really wonderful film, and what's great about it is it still plays today. You can pop this in, and it will hit you and sort of sweep you away and be just as funny as it was when it came out back in 1992.
Fantastic.
And I'm going to do this one if you don't mind.
No, do it.
Tales from the Hood. Rusty Cundiff. So again,
now you knew Rusty back then, didn't you?
I knew. I worked on Fear of a Black Hat, which he originally shot, by the way. Rusty originally shot that film on VHS
Did he really?
tape. He shot that whole movie on VHS tape, brought that movie to a company I was working for at the time, a company called ITC.
Such a funny movie.
It was just hysterical. Some of the same cast that's in that. Anyway, the movie we're talking about is Tales from the Hood. I'm going all off on that. This is also a collector's edition. I think I know everybody in this movie too. Yeah, know him. Yep, know him. Okay. So but this was one of those first movies from that period.
Yeah.
Produced by a little cadre of black filmmakers to move to move out of what had been the genre films of the day, sort of a notch forward from, say, black exploitation films of a generation before, or the deeply black dramas of that period too. Again, Matty Rich's film, Sidewalk Stories, a few others popping around back then. These guys, Jason's Lyric, all of that. These guys, you know what? We're just gonna make a movie. It'll be iconic to the hood, but it'll be the kind of and they made this neat little movie. This has all kinds of stuff on it: a making of documentary, feature interviews with just about everybody, and audio commentaries and all that kind of stuff. Vintage featurette from back in the day. Tales from the Hood, not bad at all.
And got a silent film here from the great people at Flicker Alley, who we just adore. This is a Blu-ray of Irvin Willat's Behind the Door, newly restored by the San Francisco Silent Film Festival, a movie with which I was entirely unfamiliar, made in 1919 by Thomas Ince, who was Thomas Ince made mostly Westerns and so forth, but, Thomas Ince, by the way, Inceville, which was his studio at the time. Do you know where Inceville was?
Is it where's the street in Hollywood?
It's not in Hollywood. It's in Pacific Palisades.
Really?
Where the Self-Realization Fellowship is. Lake Shrine.
Oh
with the monks and the whole thing. That was originally Inceville, where Sunset Boulevard meets PCH, the Gladstone's restaurant, and all of that stuff. And
am I nuts, or Ince is a street in Hollywood? I mean, it's named after him. But...
Well, Ince, actually, Culver City has Ince. That's where.
Oh, that's in Culver City.
That's where he eventually ended up. But Inceville, his big giant lot
that
by the sea, was in Pacific Palisades, where
idea.
Lake Shrine and the Self-Realization Fellowship people are right now, where monks and birds and people go and. The whole thing. So anyway, and I'm assuming that some of this must have been shot there as well. Anyway, Behind the Door is a little bit of a mess, but it's interesting, especially now that we're in this 100th anniversary of World War II moment. Which, by the way, we were talking earlier, The Great War, which is showing on PBS, fantastic, great series. This stars a guy named Hobart Bosworth. Is that a great movie star name? Hobart Bosworth. Hobart Bosworth plays a guy who is because he is persecuted for being part German. Once war breaks out, he decides to go and enlist and prove what a great American he is. And he goes to sea. And at some point, somehow, his wife sneaks aboard his ship. I don't know how realistic we can really claim that to be. But then there's there's like a U-boat, and there's all kinds of horrible stuff that happens, and it turns into a by the way, we are talking about Wallace Beery in wrestling.
Yeah,
Wallace Beery plays the U-boat German commander. A young Wallace Beery. Anyway,
there was a young Wallace Beery. That's funny.
Well, he doesn't really look young. He's he overacts like crazy. But anyway, this is a really very interesting film. Obviously not one of the all-time great silent films, but in context, really a very significant film. Definitely worth checking out, especially on Blu-ray. The restoration is just beyond gorgeous, and there are tons of bonus materials here that are just perfect. The film was re-edited for Russian audiences. They include that cut on here. And there are outtakes, which are kind of amazing. And then most importantly, there's Kevin Brownlow remembering Irvin Willat, which is an interview with Kevin Brownlow all about the career of Irvin Willat and why he's an important figure and one that I didn't even know about. So Brownlow, really an amazing guy. And I owe a huge debt to Brownlow as well, because Brownlow helped me sort of try, unsuccessfully, unfortunately, but sort of put me on the right path to track down the 2 silent films that my father acted in.
Wow.
So I do owe him. He is a wonderful man. And then getting down to the very end here, House, 2 stories. This is the original House and the second movie, House, the second story, along with The House Companion, which is a book. So this is all in a nice big boxed set from Arrow Video, who keeps doing really interesting work resurrecting exploitation films and cult films. This is from RLJ as well. So everybody had a little foot in this. But looking at the House movies again after the fact, I still have mixed feelings. I got to be honest. I get why they were popular, but I don't know. They still feel
middle 70s.
No, this is like 80s. This is 80s.
Middle 80s.
Yeah, this is mid 80s, and I still feel like we're in a kind of a very different. It doesn't. They're not scary. Let's put it that way. This dovetails into Nightmare on Elm Street, but even Nightmare on Elm Street isn't scary anymore.
Not anymore. No.
You watch those movies, there's nothing scary about them.
I dig the practical effects that they were still doing.
Yeah.
In the pre-CGI days.
Yeah.
But that's about it.
Well, anyway, this is for if you like those particular kinds of genre films from that period.
Steve Miner, anyway.
Oh, good question. I have no idea.
I mean, because he was a guy for a minute.
Still around,
You know.
I'm sure. Yeah.
Forever young.
Well, lots of extras on here, tons of behind-the-scenes stuff, and how these movies were made, and the effects, and the makeup, and yada yada yada. Interviews. I mean, just really, really tons of stuff. So, especially the book, The House Companion is just. I mean, if you're a fan of this franchise, this is everything you've ever dreamed of. This is a great box set. But you got to be kind of into that particular thing from that era.
Yeah.
And then this is wonderful thing to go out on. Criterion has just released an edition of Woman of the Year. Really just a fabulous film. Classic.
Very forward,
like
quasi-feminist.
And directed by George Stevens, who is all over the place right now on Netflix with Five Came Back, the multi-part documentary about all the directors that went to World War II.
Make those one. Ring Lardner, right?
No, it's
no, that.
Oh, this. Yes, correct. Yes, yeah. Ring Lardner wrote this. Yes, and it's wonderful. It includes George Stevens' filmmaker's journey. The 1984 documentary is a part of this, so definitely want that. That is just since that alone is worth the purchase price. I mean, that's a great documentary.
Look, a movie about women and you're a journalist and trying to make all this kind of thing, and she's like this feminist and just all this kind of in the context of today's news regarding women journalists in 2017.
Pretty
that
great.
Movie, which is from like the middle 40s or something like that.
This is from 1942.
That's a real
war era.
You
got Rosie the Riveter, right? Has just gone to work, and I mean we've just started the war. And so the women are holding down the home front, and this is a significant. This really has a legendary place, not just in the Hepburn Tracy pantheon, but it's a terrific movie, a lot of fun, and it dates so well. It's so funny, it's so smart, really, really great. So George Stevens, Woman of the Year, and we will go out with that one. And with that, we'll be back next week.